These are my favorite beans, these gigante beans, aside from cocoa beans, which I've only had once, twice. I'm trying not to go out and buy anything today. It's one of those days I just want to not spend money. So we're working with what we got. Gigante beans. Ideally I would have soaked these overnight, but let me show you a trick. Pot, a big pot. We're gonna fill it up with water. Bring it to a boil. And these expand a lot, so I will probably only use about a third of these. Just for 2 of us, 3 of us. Yeah, I'm gonna cook these in broth, defrost some broth. And obviously you can just use canned beans and you wouldn't have to do this soaking process. Turn the boiling water off. And you wanna make sure that there's plenty of space in here because these are going to expand big time. And then we're gonna let those chill for the afternoon. Those beans have been soaking. I would say if you're doing put the beans into the hot water method, to at least let them sit for an hour if you can. I've let these sit for like 4 hours, so these should be pretty good to go. We're basically combining everything into a pot, throwing it in the oven at 350 and cooking it for 3 hours. Talk about a one-pot meal, baby. Here we go. Yeah, baby. So we plop that in the oven at 350 for about 3 hours. Then we have some buttery soft beans. Soft enough for my baby, soft enough for me. Yum. Cooking the beans off on the stove because they weren't as soft as I wanted them to be. I'm serving them with some rice. Oh my gosh, so hot. Whoops. Very cozy. Cozy. Easy, tasty, satisfying, yum. What I'm currently reading. So let's start with what I just completed. So I'm trying to read the 25 books this month. I abandoned a book that I was quite literally maybe 40 pages from finishing, and it pissed me off, so I stopped. So I read this one, The Mother Lode by Sarah Hoover. It's a memoir. It is very frank, very much honest, unapologetic, and brutally funny. It was definitely funny. I was laughing out loud. It really is just a testament to everyone's experience with birth and motherhood is completely different. It is. So it was interesting to hear her perspective. It was also, her writing was just really easy and down to earth and inspiring. Really good, really nice if you are in a similar situation, you're a new mom. It's just nice to hear other people's stories and see what resonates and what's different and whatnot. Also, we grew up in the same town, so it was fun to hear her perspective. Next up, I read another memoir, Flea's memoir. My dear friend recommended this one to me, and I had seen this around, but grew up like in high school. I really loved the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I read Anthony Kiedis' memoir back in high school and had like a massive crush on him and blah, blah, blah. So it was really fun to read Flea's memoir. I loved his writing. It's very raw and not by the book. And it's fun too because this doesn't really even talk about Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's actually everything basically leading up to Red Hot Chili Peppers. So just his childhood and how he came to be in life in LA, being a teenager in the 80s, like late 70s, early 80s. Really, really, really fun. I read this one very quickly. I was just out of town on a job and I read it and finished it in like 3 days. So really, really entertaining. Darling, so on my list, I just read Coco Meller's Cleopatra and Frankenstein, or Frankenstein and Cleopatra, a couple months ago. Do you want to roll around? You want to roll around? This, my other friend gave this one to me, and I started it before I got either of these two. So I started it. I liked her last book, so I'm excited to read this one. And when I was reading the synopsis of it, in my head I was just like, this would be a really good movie. So I don't know. I'm excited to read this one. On more of the philosophical front, The Tao of Psychology, Synchronicity, and the Self. Someone is not happy that I went out of town and has been giving me a very hard time. So this one's very heady, and even like the font is very tiny. I took this one when I was just out of town for the job. I went to a little I took this one to the bar when I was having dinner. It wasn't really a good bar read. I got through like one page. It was just too distracting. I couldn't focus. Sai Swoon was reading this a couple months ago and I screenshotted it because it sounded very, very up my alley. There's a lot of reference to Carl Jung. Some of it feels a little repetitive of things that I already know. I sort of see this as, I don't practice a religion, but this sort of stuff feels like, to me, like reading the Bible, right? Understanding God in another way. Do you want to come sit over here? Hi. Hi. I got two others from the library. My mother recommended this one to me. This is James, a novel. This is about a character who travels along with Huckleberry Finn, if I'm correct. The brilliant reimaginings Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, both harrowing, ferociously funny, told from the enslaved Jim's point of view. So we're gonna get to this one. I was on a wait list for this one for a while, so I need to read this because I have to take it back pretty soon. To me, this is giving like historical fiction, which I really enjoy. So I'm excited for this one. And then I haven't read Haruki Murakami in a very long time. His favorite book of mine is actually What I Think About While Running. But this one is some of his short stories, Men Without Women. I just thought I would dabble again because it's literally probably been like 10 years since I've read anything by him. So we'll give this one a whirl as well. So that's what we're reading right now.
Oh, I love this little baby.